Right, ladies and gentlemen, shall we make a start? First of all, just the normal procedural points. So far as fire evacuation procedures are concerned, there's no fire alarm scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the rear of this room. Go down the stairs and meet in the War Memorial Park. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live on the internet. And if you have a mobile phone with you, could you switch it off or turn it to silent, please? Okay, over to the main agenda. We have a couple of apologies for absence, Councillor Tomlin and Councillor Washbourne. Declarations of interest, anyone? Based on this evening's agenda? Anybody? No? Thank you. Urgent matters. We haven't been advised of anything in particular, have we? No? Okay. Which takes us to the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on the 29th of July, paper A in your pack. I know it's a few months ago, but are you happy with the minutes as they have been drafted? Agreed. Okay, thank you. In that case, I will sign those minutes at the end of the meeting. Which takes us on to item 5 on the agenda, which is an update on the review of standards arrangements for dealing with complaints. What we have here is a statement as before the 22nd of October, which was the last full council meeting. And we have this under recommendation. There are 2 points. The first is that we should note that the arrangements for dealing with the complaints in Appendix 1 have been submitted to full council, and the second is that the revised media and communications protocol at Appendix 2 is there, and we just need to approve that, because you may remember last time we were not too happy with the drafting of that. It seemed to be a bit out of date. So I'm going to ask my Vice Chair, my colleague Councillor Dan Putty, if he could just give us some feedback on the full council meeting last Thursday.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I actually presented the arrangement to the council, and Councillor Stuart Parker seconded it at the council. And there was some that the Labour councillors didn't wanted to really bring it back. Mainly it was to do with taking away resources from the councillor. And it was debated, and most councillors approve of what we had on the table, and the recommendation that we made was passed by the council on votes, and we actually got it through. And the councillors from the Labour side, although still not happy with it, but they had to really accept what the council decided. So there we are.
Because it actually went to a vote, is that what you're saying? Okay, fine. Councillor Parker, is there anything you wish to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate I'm new to this committee. What I have a query about is we're here to effectively, as a committee tonight, to agree the paper in front of us, which has now already been to council and has already had a vote on. To my mind, in terms of the right order of conducting business, that seems to be out of order. That's my first point.
I agree with you. It does seem odd. So really I was just regarding this item on the agenda as an update from borough councillors who were at the full council meeting, so that we are made aware, members of the Standards Committee, of where we now stand. So seeing that it has gone through full council, what would the effective date be of the new arrangements? Do you know?
Chair, my understanding is that it is effective as from the date the resolution was passed, so in effect it would be the following day.
Okay, so in that case, it is now, they are the arrangements that are now in place. Okay. Yes, Mr. Evans.
Chairman, can I move the recommendations to on paper leave it, we note it and approve it?
Well, before we jump in on that point, I would like to reinforce that it's very unfortunate. I think possibly maybe we got our diaries wrong. I can't think that this was something intentional, because in actual fact there are some discrepancies between the notes to this meeting, that's the amendments that were put forward to accompany this paper tonight, to the amendments that are shown in the council minutes and on the actual document that is in front of us. So there are some discrepancies. So if I achieve nothing else tonight, it would be to ask you, Chair, that you ensure, if we are looking at something as important as this again, we as a committee have an opportunity to feed back before it goes to council. Okay. Because I don't see a great deal of purpose in committee members poring over these documents when in actual fact it's now been passed. And a couple of them are actually quite important. And I would also I appreciate now it's been passed, but I think we need to note a couple of amendments that were requested by this committee effectively haven't been changed on the procedure.
Very grateful to you for highlighting that. Could you be specific on what those points are, and we will take a note of them?
Yes, this is going to be a little difficult because, of course, I have the council minute book in front of me, which is the document that I can only refer to in terms, and I'll try and link that up. If members want to look at on this agenda, page 4 of 51.
Sorry, just a moment. Bernie is trying to clarify something for us.
Councillor Parker, can you confirm the date of the minutes from the minute book? Is it the 29th of July minutes?
This is the 29th of July minutes.
Yeah, that is paper A in everybody's report.
Yes.
It's the minutes of the last meeting.
Yes, I mean, that's what happened. You may remember that meeting was a very lengthy meeting. It was a 2.5-hour meeting when we went through the documentation line by line almost, or certainly main paragraph by main paragraph. And that then formed the basis of the paper that went forward to full council. So I take your point about the timing is unfortunate, but that was the basis on which the paper was finalised. On the last meeting that we had in July. It then went forward to full council. So with those little points of clarification, I'm more than happy to hear from you where there may be discrepancies now.
But I also would point out, Chair, that in front of us this evening we have a report dated the 26th of October.
So this evening,
yes. Which is... okay. Right, well, in terms of what I said, I'm looking at page 4 of 51. Yes, which notes the resolved amendments to be made. And to best try and guide you, if you take the little dots 1, 2, 3, 4th down, which is to amend point 42B of the report, page 38, to say the conduct complained about happened more than 6 months ago. My understanding from the meeting, the last meeting, was that that was effectively a full stop. Because if you refer to any of the documents, that's the report we were working on, the document we were working on in our meeting the 29th of July 2015, and if you look at the, well you can't, I can, of the council minutes, it reads, the subject member is no longer a council, complaints process. So this is where you have A, B, C, D and E. And B is the conduct complained about happened more than 6 months ago. Striked out is the conduct complained about happened more than 6 months ago. There's effectively been no change achieved here. And this goes on to then read, and there is no substantial reason for the complaint to be investigated. That was the bit that should have been struck out. As my understanding from our meeting on the 29th of July, it was going to be a succinct item merely saying that this would not be, the complaint is likely to be dismissed if it was being made more than 6 months ago. And that is a very important actual condition. We've lost that because of the timetable they were working with on this meeting, the council meeting. That's my first point.
I agree with you. That was the intention of our meeting on 29th of July.
Before I trouble to go on through the other points, Chair, I might invite other members as to how they see, this is actually, we're the standards committee here, and we've got something very wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that's correct. I believe that in fact the discussion was centred around the fact that 6 months was too finite, and I thought Councillor Parker was asking for that to be dismissed in the sense that it was too finite, in that there is no substantial reason for the complaint to be investigated, was are there to mitigate a firm fixed 6 months. I may be wrong.
Any other views?
Well, if the officer would care to help us in this, the officer can probably tell us from the current procedural that we have, yes, what does that say, and what have we got now as a result of the amendment in going forward from the council meeting on Thursday. You can compare the two, and I don't think there's been any amendment on that particular point. That's point B.
Well, Chair, I haven't seen the report that went to full council, but I do believe it does have a provision in the report that allows the monitoring officer to make minor amendments.
Yeah.
I do believe that. So if any issues are raised to date, it could be done under the monitoring officer's delegated authority.
Yes, that is correct. Mr. Spillane?
Yes, I was just going to confirm that during the discussion at the working group we felt that 6 months as a finite limit was too much, and we actually said there should be some discretion on behalf of the monitoring officer if it's over that period.
So that is the way that we can deal with it, Councillor Parker. Are there any other points that you wish to raise?
Yes. I'll just find it. Right. This is on just got to now find where I am in relation to. Yes, this is in relation to paragraph 6.7. This is on the, again, the notes from the meeting of the 29th of July This is looking at the bottom of the page, 4 of 51.
Yes.
The second of the black square dots, which is amend point H to read that the councillor be replaced on appointments made by council. And H has remained the same as it was previously. And this is, I'm reading from the council document, the council, yes, that's being voted on. And it shows, recommend to council that the councillor be replaced as executive leader. That was as it was before, and there's not been now, therefore, any change to that particular point. And I'll go on to just make you aware of the last one, which was on page 5 of 51, top of the page, the third of the black spots. The revised media communications protocol at Appendix 6 will be amended using the agreed wording from Appendix 2. And there's not been any change to the protocol in the council papers. So I don't quite understand how we get to where we are. There we are.
I'm very grateful to you, Councillor Parker, for pointing these things out. I don't know how those things have slipped through the net, but each of the points that you have raised are what we agreed at the last meeting in July, and they should have been reflected in the paper that went to full council. As Gina has pointed out, the way forward for us is to make those corrections under the provisions that are agreed, that the monitoring officer can make minor changes to the arrangements as now agreed. Yes.
If it would assist you, Chair, I'm quite happy to do a memo email to the monitoring officer, and I'll copy all members in. And if then that will allow them to also see what I'm sending through, and then if members want to then pick up on those points, that may assist.
I think that's a very helpful proposal. Thank you very much for doing that. I mean, you picked up 3, but if there does happen to be anything more when you are drafting your email, then by all means include those as well. But I'm very grateful to you. Okay, are there any other points on the paper as it stands? I note your point, Mr. Evans. We'll come to that. Mrs. Morris.
Just something very minor, Chair, but it's just there were a couple of typos as well in the paper. I don't know whether they've been picked up on or not.
Chair, has this document been sent externally to parish councils and others as of yet? So obviously these changes need to be done before I would suggest it goes out any further. And obviously the borough councillors who have seen the paper in the council document need to be advised that there is a revision.
Chair, the situation is that the document hasn't gone out to parishes or hasn't been put on the council website. When the paper came back, I did pick up some of the typing errors, and I wanted to proofread it again before sending it on. There is going to be a parish liaison meeting early in November where the parish clerks will be aware of the changes, and we will be circulating it to all parish councils, and we will be putting something in, sending something to members, although they are aware of the changes because obviously most of the members were at full council meeting, Chair.
Thank you. That really brings, to me to a thought that I had, which is the next steps. I mean, now that the arrangements have been approved, subject to the amendments that Councillor Parker has drawn our attention to, in terms of rollout, in terms of training, perhaps, involvement of parish councillors and so on. What you mentioned there, Gina, is that the totality of what is planned?
Chair, my understanding is that members were offered and undertook some training on the Code of Conduct earlier this year by the previous Deputy Monitoring Officer. That training was not compulsory. However, as you may be aware, that the Council does undertake training and development for all members after the elections, and therefore training on the updated arrangements has been factored into the members' development plan for that period.
Any comments on that? Okay, in that case, I believe that we've noted the arrangements subject to the amendments that Councillor Parker is proposing. And the second point was, as you highlighted, Mr. Evans, that the revised media and communications protocol has now been included in Appendix 2. And this crosses over with one of your points, Councillor Parker. So with that, can I take it that any further discussion that we go forward on paper B, and that any further discussion is not necessary at this stage?
Agreed.
Okay. So we look forward to your email, Councillor Parker, and we'll take action on that very, very quickly, because obviously we don't want to delay the circulation to parish councillors and to others. So thank you for that. I think that takes us to item 6 on the agenda, where you will find that there are 3 decision notices that have been included at paper C, and we're invited to note those updated decision notices. Just like Mrs. Morris noted earlier, I noticed on page 38 of 51 that on one of these, the code, under the decision, it says the Code of Conduct has not been reached. I think that might be breached. But are there any other points such as that members wish to note? Okay, thank you. I'd just like to raise one point that occurred to me. I mean, because I've recently dealt with a complaint and issued a decision notice, and looking at these decision notices, we picked up the point that there are different layouts of decision notices, whether it's the monitoring officer who makes the decision or the independent member who makes the decision. And apparently I understand that there was some discussion of that before Gina came into this post. But I feel now that we have the new arrangements and that we have this more unified structure, that perhaps we should just revisit the decision notices to make sure that we're singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. And my suggestion would be that that members of the Working Party who looked at the arrangements in the first place just be consulted on this issue to make sure that we have decision notices that are consistent and are up to date. I don't know what members feel about that suggestion.
Yeah, as far as decision notices are concerned, I've been working on, I think, 3 or 4 now with Gina, and I think they're actually too long and go over too much detail. I think they should be, almost down to a 1-pager. At the moment, they're running to 3, 4, 5 pages. A lot of it is just purely repeating stuff that was in the original complaint, and I think they could be simplified down to a much smaller document.
Thank you. I think that is an additional point. It is one that we have considered before, but not really got down the road very far, so far as its resolution is concerned. Councillor Fryer, did you want to come in on this one or not? No, I thought I caught sight of you out the corner of my eye, but I see that Councillor Slimming does.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the decision notices that were attached to the paper compared to the decision notice that was only issued last week for the complaint that we dealt with, the reference is there's a reference there, but then it tells more detail about who the complainant is, who the councillor is, who all the other people involved with is, and obviously in the other ones it doesn't actually go into that detail. this decision notice is obviously going to be available for anyone to see. So I think if we're all standing up and being counted, I'm quite happy that we have what our role was in there, but whether people will understand who makes the decision, because you have to go right to the very end to say, you, whoever is the independent member, has made that decision. But whereas if you start from the beginning, it looks like all the other people. I know we advised you, but perhaps it should be clear who's made the final decision. That was just a thought.
Thank you very much. Gina, are you happy that we do this?
Chair, I don't think there's any harm in revisiting the decision notices. What I would say is that it's about standard practice. So, I have had a look at other decision notices used by other local authorities for their member conduct complaints, and it seems the one that is currently used is, I would say, considered best practice. However, I think it would be good to be clear about decision notices that might be needed to be used in different circumstances, Chair.
Okay, well, let's go ahead with that. What I would find useful from the committee is, would you all like to be consulted on the format of the decision notices, or should we just confine that to the former members of the working party?
Chairman, I think we've got a working party. We should ask them to continue. You know, I mean, making a decision on most things is, the smaller committee you've got, the easier it is. I think that's right. Could I just ask, has anybody looked at, I know I brought up several times in the past, the good old days of box ticking, sort of going through, does it this, as part of the, not the process, but as part of the background papers for the independent member to come to some sort of decision?
You mean the tick box that we used to use when we were assessing a complaint in the first instance? Yes,
because many of those are in longhand, if I use that word. And at some point, I would think, in my experience, an independent member will have to go through that same process of decision making. So it does prompt the decision, and logically you go through it, and at the end it will give you some indication, possibly, of where you're going. I'm not suggesting it needs to be part of the formal things, but maybe it's a part of an informal aid to the independent member.
That's certainly something that we looked at in the working party. I think I don't think we actually got down to sort of drafting the form as such. We were more concerned to make sure that the right questions were being considered. So I think probably in the follow-up, that is something that we could take on board to make sure that helpful pro forma, as it were, is available to members at that stage in the complaints process.
So I wouldn't want to be a part of the formal process, so I shouldn't waste too much time on the exact wording, making it got right, as obviously procedurally it has got to be right. So it's just a case of, yes, have we thought about that, have we thought about that, through there, on that way.
No, that's fine, thank you. All right. Is there anything else on the decision notices? Are you happy just to note those, the ones that are in table paper C? Yes? All right. Well, I think the final two items that... Sorry.
Can we have the Standards Committee, the actual decision notices, as precedents when reviewing other cases? Or is that or are we limited to actually dealing with what we've got in front of us?
No, I think it seems sensible to me that we should have examples of what we have used in the past and see how they sit in relation to the current arrangements. And then also, in the light of what Gina was saying, that she has done some research with regard to other councils, that if that information can come forward to the working party as well, it may give us a steer. So yes, I agree. Okay.
Chairman, to come back on that, I think it's important not to use the word precedent, because precedent clearly is a legal term saying it binds anybody later on with that decision. I think it's certainly having the information fed back, but I think I wouldn't like to see the word, precedents in there. Whether Gina wants to comment on it.
Yes, examples, I agree. All right. Well, I think the final two items on the agenda fall. That's exclusion of press and public and confidential exempt items for information. Therefore, I declare this particular meeting of the Standards Committee at an end. Thank you very much for coming.